Welcome to the Pastoral Perspectives Podcast. Our aim is to help Christians grow spiritually by bringing pastoral wisdom and biblical clarity to important issues of Christian faith and practice. Each episode offers a thoughtful, biblical, and pastoral take on a matter of Christian theology, church life, spiritual growth, or cultural relevance that is shaped by years of local church ministry. Pastoral Perspectives is a ministry of the pastors of Vista Bible Church in Lafayette, Colorado. Hey, it's that time again here this week for the Pastoral Perspectives Podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Zach. Bro, what are you doing? Zach, what are you doing?
How do we start?
You're not listening.
Oh,
You're not listening.
sorry.
Sheesh.
Checking my phone. What were you saying?
Well, it's too late now.
How far into this episode are we?
About 10 minutes. And oddly enough, we're going to be talking about in this episode about listening. It's time to listen to a podcast about listening. And you
I wasn't listening.
You just demonstrated that there's a need here. There's a need here.
It's what I do, Kyle. I show the need in my own life.
Well, we're glad to be able to talk about something a little bit different here today. We try to mix it up, with topics and keep it fresh and relevant in some ways to the Christian life. So,
What did you just say? No.
I wasn't listening to myself. But have you guys ever had the experience where you're talking to someone and it just becomes clear that they're not understanding what you're trying to communicate, right?
Have you?
Most likely you have, which probably tells you that I probably have experienced that as well. Most people have experienced this. And you're talking to them, and every time they respond to you, you're just like, that's not at all what I was getting at. And then you're like, well, am I communicating poorly? Or maybe that's a different subject. But
Is it me?
Is it me? But how do you feel when that happens? How do you feel when that happens?
Well, I don't feel loved.
Right?
I will say that.
Yeah.
I don't feel appreciated or really valued,
Mm-hmm. Not great. You don't feel great.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
So in that, I think we could all say the way we listen when others are speaking it's actually a pretty big deal. And so the main thing we want to say in this episode, the main argument is that it is an act of love to truly listen to people. And not being good at listening to people is a failure to truly love them.
Yeah.
So you can
That's good.
love others by listening to them well. And we'll look at some scripture to support these things as we talk about them. You can fail to love by listening poorly as well.
Yeah.
So off we go.
So that's what we're going to talk about. I probably to start, we should just say and try to make clear what the right goal is in our listening. Why should you want to listen to people, become a better listener? So in one sense, if your ear is receiving sound waves like mine was, a few minutes ago, and your brain perceives that a person's speaking, which I was mildly aware of, you're hearing them, right? But you're not necessarily listening. So a key question to ask yourself to discern whether you're listening lovingly or not, is just, what is your goal when you listen to someone speak? What are you trying to do and accomplish when you're listening to someone? And there's a lot of different, possibilities. You could be listening just to figure out what you're going to say next. So I think people do that.
Yep.
You could be listening just simply to decide how to counsel them or maybe correct them, contradict something they just said. You're just waiting for that chance to be the counselor, be the fixer, be the corrector,
Right.
teacher, or whatever. You could be listening, just to appear that you care or something. Just give the impression to them that you care, even though you really don't.
Right.
Could there be other reasons? What are some other possible
Well, I
reasons?
mean, you could be just trying to get through the conversation because you don't really want to talk to them. That can be a goal. I need to just get through this so that can be done. Or in a similar vein, just trying to get through whatever they're saying. And as they're talking, you're just trying to think of the new topic you want to bring up that's exciting to you, it's more about transitioning to what you want to talk about.
You're only listening because you don't really care about what they're saying.
Yeah. Or your goal could be to accurately understand what they're saying, accurately, and what they mean, and to bless them in whatever ways you can. That can also be your goal.
Learn how you can bless them. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Obviously, only one of those goals is motivated by love.
Yeah.
So the last one.
Right. Just in case someone was wondering.
Just to be clear.
That's the goal we want to have as believers.
Understand and learn how you can bless another person.
Yeah.
Does the Bible have anything to say about this?
I think so. I do think so.
You do think so?
I would have to venture to say it does. So we'll start with Philippians chapter 2. This is a great passage. It doesn't just have to do with how we listen. It has to do with how we interact with people in all sorts of ways. But in verse 3, Paul says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit. That would include listening. And then he says, but in humility, count others more significant than yourselves. And that would include when you're listening. Verse 4 says, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. So listening well should be birthed by a desire to look out for the interests of others, to care about what they are thinking about, to truly understand what it is they're trying to communicate, even if to you it's not that interesting or you're not too concerned about it, that kind of thing. It should be motivated by this loving, humble attitude. Yeah,
that's good. The Proverbs have some really important things to say about this too. Proverbs 18, I think, is an important chapter with a few things in there to this topic. Proverbs 18:13 is one example. It says, if one gives an answer before he hears, and again, that's not just with your ear, but you're listening. Excuse me, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. Those are strong words. So, which obviously means you shouldn't interrupt a person, right? Who's still trying to communicate something. But it also kind of goes beyond just waiting until they're done so that you can start talking. Question is, did you really hear them or not before you gave a response?
Right.
Are you 100% certain you know what they meant? If not, you need to ask questions. You need to clarify with the person whether you're interpreting them correctly or not, especially if it's an important conversation or a contentious conversation.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you're understanding the person. So once you're certain, then it's time for you to speak. Otherwise, Proverbs says you're listening like a fool, and it's evident to the person you're talking to. So if one gives an answer before he hears, it's because you think you don't have to hear or learn anything before you speak, which is foolishness, right? It's just foolishness. We have to learn to listen because we're not God. We have to learn to listen because we're not omniscient. We don't know everything. We can't read the hearts of people. God can do that. We can't. So for us to understand them, we have to listen.
Yeah. Right.
And if we're not willing to listen, we're just looking for a chance to spout our opinion. That's foolishness. It's what the fool does. It's not what a wise person.
Yeah. None of us wants to be this way.
No,
Right. We
no
don't
one
want to be
wants to
that
be
way
this way.
as believers.
We
We
all
want to.
can be this way.
Yeah. And then I think I guess the other temptation here, like along with the reality that we're not omniscient, we don't know everything, is there's a temptation to kind of assume everyone thinks like you do. And so because you hear a few words that sort of line up with something you've been thinking or uh, something like that, you sort of jump to thinking you know exactly what they are
Mm-hmm.
getting at, when in reality that may not be the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's fairly common. So again, just the importance of making sure you understand them, not
Right.
just some of the words that they're saying and how they work together in some related topic that
Right.
you're thinking about.
Right.
And that's actually a really important distinction there.
Right.
But you mentioned the whole chapter of Proverbs 18. There's also in verse 15, there's another one that's really relevant to this. It says, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. It's a really interesting proverb. The ear of the wise seeks knowledge. So, like, what's the takeaway there? In secular terminology, there's the practice of active listening. Even the world understands, like, you got to actually do something when you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to that. Like the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. It's engaged. It's intently focused on what's being said, but not just that. Like it's seeking knowledge.
Right.
And the heart too is involved as well. Like the parallelism of that proverb, you have the intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and then the ear of the wise seeks knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So like the whole person is involved in the listening and seeking to understand that person as they're talking, seeking to gain insight into that person and what they're communicating.
That's good. That's what a wise, intelligent person does.
Yeah.
Proverbs 18:2 says, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only expressing his opinion. So he's giving a negative example, obviously. A fool doesn't care about interpreting someone correctly. All they want to do is run their mouth. They just want to speak. They want to tell you what they think. They want to tell you what they're interested in. They want to tell you what you should think, all of those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And we all probably know how it feels to talk to a person like this. It's very, off-putting. The person usually seems to have a pretty high view of themselves and of their own opinions. Meanwhile, like, ironically, your opinion of them is sort of downgrading. So no one wants to be like that. So we should humble ourselves and take pleasure in understanding and not just speaking.
Yeah.
So if the fool, this is in Proverbs, a fool is a person who's living without regard for God and his authority, a person who's living his own life, his own way, doing his own things. If the fool takes no pleasure in it, the wise takes great pleasure in understanding, and listening.
Right.
And a wise person isn't going to usually feel a great burden to speak, to express their opinion until they've acquired understanding.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. Usually the people most eager to speak, quickest to jump in there, with words, are more foolish than those who take their time and who sit back and listen and are quiet, so that they might learn things. It's ironic because you would expect the wise person to be the one always conveying, and passing on their wisdom, but they don't, because they realize they need to learn.
Quietly learning and listening is not passive.
Right.
Right. They are active. You
Right.
just don't hear what's
Right.
going on. And then when they speak, they feel like they've understood.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think all those passages are helpful to us, um, and helpful to grow in this particular expression of love. I don't know how often you think of love for neighbor, in terms of listening to your neighbor,
Right.
but this is some great passages to this topic. Even
Hmm.
if you're good at this, growing is only going to bless others more.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other passages?
Yeah, I mean, Matthew 7:12, which is often called the golden rule, right? Jesus says there in the midst of that sermon, he says, so whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. And so you just apply that to your listening, however you would hope that others would listen to you. That's how you should listen to others as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And again, just getting back to the examples, you can think back to examples where when someone's not doing this with you, and you can tell, like, um, think about that and then do the
Mm-hmm.
opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make some real effort to ensure you're not doing that to others as well. So,
Good.
yeah, I think there's one particular sort of test case or situation in life where listening in specific ways is really important, and that's the example of where you're listening to people who are in conflict with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it'd be good to talk about that a little bit here, kind of under
Mm-hmm.
its own little heading. Like, how do you apply these principles in a situation like that where they are not agreeing? So simply understanding and agreeing with both of them is,
Mm-hmm.
you got to do something. And maybe you're put in a place where you need to help them, resolve or see something. How do
Right.
you listen in that situation?
Right.
So what do we do there?
Well, so obviously you need to listen to understand, right? But there's a proverb in Proverbs 18, kind of sandwiched in between these ones that we've looked at, that sort of adds another element to this and an application to this topic. So it says, Proverbs 18:17, the one who states his case first seems right until the other comes and examines him. So, uh, in in our vernacular, you might just say there's two sides to every story, and you gotta be careful if you're listening to someone in a conflict that you don't just take one side too quickly without having heard the whole story. So if you're gonna take this into account, that the person who comes to you first seems right until you come and examine him, with other information and all of that, then you're going to have to listen to both sides. You're going to have to listen to both people in this conflict, and not jump to conclusions. Not jump too quickly to who's right and who's wrong and all of that. You have to ensure that you truly understand what uh, the people are communicating as the causes of whatever conflict is going on. You're going to have to understand that whatever they think the cause is isn't necessarily the real cause. The way they see things isn't necessarily reality, and you're going to have to do that for both sides. You're going to have to sort through it, with both people or both parties in this conflict
Yep.
before you start speaking a lot, aside from asking questions, trying to clarify. And then even when it's time for you to start speaking into the situation, you're still gonna have to be careful, ask more questions, listen some more. There's a lot of listening involved
Yeah.
when it comes to helping people work through things. Maybe you're not involved in it, but you're helping them. Um, and so it's only going to be when you have as much information as possible and as accurate of a understanding of their situation that you're going to be able to help,
Yeah. And so,
and be a
like,
blessing.
I just interrupted you. Uh-oh. That's
will
not very
listen.
loving.
Now I will listen to correct my previous sin.
Like, and it's just not as simple as, okay, well, I got to go talk to the one person once, go talk to the other person once,
Right.
and now I got it.
Now I figured it out.
That's not what this is talking about. Like, once you've just done that, that's like the bare minimum. And now you've got all sorts of other questions. Like, okay, now I have questions about this, and I have questions about this, and what does this person think about what this person said about this? And so then you got to go back and ask more questions before you speak, like you're saying. But like, I just want to be clear, the principle in this proverb goes beyond just a quick little, neat little,
Yeah.
okay, let's have some
Get
official
one side,
professional.
get the other side, and now you're ready to go.
Yeah.
And honestly, I might even broaden this this application to just like counseling in general.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're in a situation where you're called upon to give counsel, hopefully godly biblical counsel to a friend, someone in the church, you know, whoever it might be. I remember, you know, years ago doing all this biblical counseling training, and it really made me think for a short time that I was being equipped with all the answers basically to everyone's problems, you know, and that the ministry of counseling was just about speaking, just about telling people the answers, you know. And I quickly learned, I've learned and had this affirmed many, many times over the years, that I'll have nothing good to say until I've understood.
Right.
The person, the situation, the struggle, the root causes, all of that. So listening is a huge part of counseling. Like,
Right.
really good, skillful, loving, careful, humble listening. So, you know, it's not just about telling people what to do, it's about understanding people. And you won't understand them unless you're paying attention to them and listening to them.
Yeah.
So
True.
There's a broad application here for sure. All this topic made me think there's a great section in Bonhoeffer's book Life Together. So many good sections in that book, where Bonhoeffer is talking about the Christian's ministry of listening, and it's in this attempt to flesh out ways Christians are to serve one another in the church. So as you think, how can I serve my brothers and sisters? What do you think most people think of when they think of serving one another?
Speaking and like physically doing things for people, probably the two top things.
Yeah. Physical acts and words, right?
Yeah.
Bonhoeffer starts with a ministry that I think we're pretty prone to overlook, and he just calls it the ministry of listening. So he asks the question, how then is true brotherly service performed in the Christian community? And the first thing he says, the first part of his answer is this. He says, the first service that one owes to others in the fellowship consists in listening to them. Just as love to God begins with listening to his word, he says, so the beginning of love for the brethren is learning to listen to them. It's God's love for us that he not only gives us his word, but also lends us his ear. So it is his work that we do for our brother when we learn to listen to him. What do you think of that?
I think it's really good. Excellent. I think maybe we should have just read this instead of us talking for however long this episode has been, because I think that's really good. And,
It's good.
but he wrote it for a reason, right? Like based on the common experiences in Christian churches, many, we might perceive that many are talking when they should be listening. And, many of us offer counsel before we've heard the full details of a person's dilemma, and not just the situation, but like the issues surrounding it and the internal thoughts and struggles that a person has surrounding the situation. Or we might correct people before we've heard their arguments. That, that's fairly common. Or we assume a person's motivations, they're like the reasons they're doing things or the conclusions they've made before they've even articulated them. That's a big problem. We offer advice to someone who's not really asking for it. That happens. And sometimes when we listen, we're just doing it impatiently, just waiting only, as he says, this is Bonhoeffer again, he says, only for a chance to speak and so get rid of the other person, which is interesting language, right? I want to get rid of you by speaking.
How can I get rid of you? Yeah.
Yeah, that's insightful. So all this to say, as we bring all this stuff together and kind of summarize and end the episode, are you a good listener, Christian? Do you love others by the way that you listen? And do you really work at understanding and knowing your brothers and sisters in the church? And maybe we could get practical a little bit. So like, what should that look like?
So when a person's struggling and you're trying to help them, do you let them articulate the full nature of their struggle before you try to help them deal with it or fix it? Do you understand what they're going through? Have you worked to get a full picture of what they're going through? When people ask for advice, this is sort of dangerous territory because we can be like the fool very easily and just blurt it out as quickly as possible. When someone's asking for advice, do you make sure that you're accurately understanding their situation before you give that advice? Do you ask like probing questions before you give counsel? Even if they're coming to you for counsel, do you still take the time to understand their situation before you give it? And if you don't, do you realize that, what it says about you when you don't do these things? Proverbs is pretty clear. You're being foolish. Only a fool disregards that ministry of careful listening because only a fool assumes that he has insight into the problems and motives and all of that of people that really only God possesses without listening. God doesn't have to listen to learn. He doesn't learn anything, right? But we do. So until you acquire that attribute of omniscience, you should learn to be a good listener.
Yeah, and something we haven't said nearly enough here is, we could pray while we're listening. Lord, help me understand and be a blessing to this person. So not just to have the goal, but to pray that God will help you do this.
Yeah.
And he's answered that prayer many times for me, and I'm sure for all of us when we've done that.
No doubt.
Yeah. Now, you might hear all this and you actually have listened to what we've said. You've understood it here, and you're like, I thought our greatest ministry to the church was speaking the truth in love to one another.
That's Bible.
That's the Bible, Ephesians 4. We quote that verse all the time on this this podcast. It's at least a critical ministry of every Christian in the church. But the question here is, like, how will you ever know what specific truth to speak, and what truth would compel you to speak in a given situation? If you're not a faithful listener, and to speak, to give grace to those who hear, like Colossians talks about, like that meets the moment, to meets the situation. If you don't understand the situation, how do you know what to speak?
Right.
So that's something that we have to understand. These two things go together. The ministry of speaking goes with the ministry of listening.
Bonhoeffer actually says that the service of listening is for the sake of the service of the word.
And that's good.
We listen for the sake of our ministry of truth. So these aren't in competition. Helpful speaking is based on careful listening, and speaking without listening is just foolish.
Yeah.
So you should ask yourself, we all should, have we failed in any ways to perform this service, this ministry of listening to our brothers and sisters in the church? Where could you do better? Where could you grow in this? We think it's worth thinking on these things and not just thinking on them, but making plans to change, making concrete plans and choices to improve in this ministry as a means of growing in love for your fellow Christians.
Mm-hmm.
I know I can grow in this.
Yep, me too, for sure.
So let's do it.
Let's work to grow in it together.
Yeah.
By the grace of God.
Amen.
What'd you say?
I don't remember. I said amen.
Oh.
Amen.
I understand.
Amen.
Fully. All right.
Thanks for putting up with us.
Yep, we appreciate it. Again, we hope to bless you through these podcasts and look forward to the next one we do. See you then.